Okay, hi everybody, I'm back again. Apparently, somehow it split that first segment into two segments. So this is actually segment three, and it will be listed, I think, as the third one when I post this. So I apologize about that. Where we are is if you printed these out, or you, whether frame by frame or slide by slide, it's actually the seventh slide, cognitive valence theory. Okay. Slide 8 goes into much more detail. I'm not going to cover that. You can X that out. It's just too much because this theory actually really only applies to romantic relationships, and it, um, it would take me probably 15 or 20 minutes to go through the six properties or traits that, according to this theory, must be present um, in order for cognitive valence theory arousal to take place. And we don't have that kind of time. What we're trying to do in the movie Rain Man is focus on a growing relationship, not romantic relationship, but a growing friendship slash family relationship between two brothers. If you haven't seen the movie, the two main actors are Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman. Tom Cruise plays Charlie Babbitt. And I don't want to give the whole movie away without watching it, but just to kind of cue you in, because I want you to be thinking about these theories as you're watching the movie. So maybe just having a little bit of knowledge of the movie will help right now. Tom Cruise plays brother Charlie Babbitt, who's basically a car, I don't even want to say dealer and wheeler, because he's not really a salesman. It's very high end and so forth. Basically a car broker. Dustin Hoffman plays his older autistic brother Raymond Babbitt. And so the movie focuses on the growing relationship that the two brothers have. Almost all of the theories that we're going to talk about, excluding cognitive valence theory, but social penetration theory, reinforcement theory, social exchange theory, and equity theory. Four main theories that I'm going to talk about. They all can be applied to either romantic relationships or to family relationships. So one of the things I'll be asking you to do is to basically apply each theory to the growing relationship and discuss that. That'll be the bulk of what we do in class, and what those questions will pertain to next Tuesday. Okay, so again, not cognitive valence theory. I just want to mention it because it's kind of a cool theory that you can sort of apply to your romantic relationships, even though I'm not going to go into depth. But you want to think about social penetration theory, reinforcement theory. Okay. And the two social exchange theories, which are interdependence theory and equity theory. Okay, so there are four. But just to get started, cognitive valence theory, I like it because it just makes a lot of sense. And basically what it says, and again, we're not going to go into a lot of detail, but basically what it says is, if someone romantically attempts to increase intimacy, and attempt to increase intimacy could include maybe trying to hold somebody's hand, probably trying to kiss somebody, touch somebody, even touch their arm, give them a hug. Any type of that initial, when we say initial, for the very first time, this theory can only really be applied to the very first time one person attempts to, I guess we could kind of say, put the moves on the other person. That might be a kind of a crass but a layman's term for attempt to increase intimacy. There are three possibilities of what can happen. And I just love this because the one you might laugh at, but research actually shows it could be true. There are three responses that the other person can exhibit. So again, one person, person A, attempts to increase intimacy with person B, meaning attempts to kiss, because that's probably the most common that we think of, maybe at the end of a date. Somebody walks somebody to the door, and I know stereotypically in a heterosexual relationship, it's the man who attempts to kiss the woman, good night, if you can kind of think of that sort of scenario. Or maybe the first time you go to a movie together and one person tries to put their arm around the other person or hold hands. Whatever that initial attempt is, that very first time. Cognitive valence theory says there are three possible responses to that attempt. You may think that, wow, there's only two, right? They either, they like it, or, B, they reject it, get away from me kind of thing. But there's actually three. Now, instead of using the terms get away from me, or, I kind of like this, or do that again, or kissing them back, we have more sophisticated terms. So we call these responses low arousal, high arousal, and the third one is actually on slide 8 that we're not going to cover, but that's moderate arousal. And I think I've explained many, many times before, for whatever reason, social scientists, behavioral scientists, those who study communication, psychology, sociology, etc., tend to group things into three categories: low, middle, and high. And it really is embedded in our culture that there are threes. It really is. If you look almost on any, heating pad, fan, space heater, usually there's high, middle, and low. Okay, sometimes there's 4 settings or 5, but typically we have 3. So there are 3 categories. Either there's low arousal, there's high arousal, or there's moderate arousal. So let me explain these just real briefly, and then I promise we'll move on to the theories that you'll need to have a knowledge of to examine the movie. Because again, these theories will constitute, I'd say, probably at least half, if not 2/3 of that questionnaire that you're going to fill out in class Tuesday on the movie Rain Man. All right, but I just want to go over this real briefly. Cognitive valence theory again says what person B does as a response to person A. Now, when we say low arousal, remember, low arousal, high arousal. I'm not getting my fingers on the webcam here. Number 1, low arousal. Number 2, high arousal. Or number 3, moderate arousal. Low arousal actually means no response or no arousal whatsoever, which may sound funny, but basically this aspect means that perhaps you are sitting in a movie theater and you are so intent on that movie, honest to God, you don't notice the other person put their arm around you, or just kind of rest their hand on your head or hair or whatever that is. As ridiculous as it may sound, there are times when someone is trying to put the moves on someone else, so to speak, and the other person truly does not even realize it. So we would call that low arousal. There's no response. There's no response because kind of a crass comparison would be you're trying to, say paramedics are trying to revive somebody. The heart stopped beating and they're trying to put the electric shocks on the person to revive the person, and they're not getting a response. They're still flatlining. That's sort of a crass but a real analogy to this idea of there's just no response because there's low arousal. The person doesn't even really realize that the first person is trying to increase intimacy. Okay, high arousal is probably not what you think. High arousal probably seems like, ooh, that's the exciting one. Okay, I'm sorry. It's 1, 2. It's 1 a.m., 1:30 a.m. I'm pretty tired while I'm doing this. High arousal is not what you may think. High arousal is according to this theory, this perspective, it's that oh my gosh kind of gripping, threatening feeling. It's bad, it's negative. It's whenever you don't want the other person to put their arm around you, hug you, kiss you, that sort of thing, sit real close to you. And you sort of get that anxiety, panicky kind of feeling. You know, your heart may be racing, your palms may sweat, and it's not because you're excited in a good way. It truly is that this putting the move on you is causing you anxiety. We call that high arousal. And so what is the typical response? The typical response is you will compensate. Excuse me. What compensation means is that you will try to avoid the situation. So if someone attempts to hold your hand and it creeps you out, or it's too much too soon, you'll slide away. They try to get closer to you, you'll move the other way. They try to kiss you, you'll turn your cheek so they're kissing your cheek and not your lips. Or, you know, they go to kiss you and all of a sudden you turn your head and you, oh wow, look at that comet. You know, even though the comet only appears every 200 years, all of a sudden you see that, right? I'm kind of kidding, but the point is that you avoid that. That's compensating. You're compensating for it because you're trying to avoid that intimacy. That's high arousal. Again, it's negative. Person B is not feeling intimacy with the other person. They're trying to avoid it. They're being caused anxiety because of that attempt to increase intimacy. All right, so we have absolutely no response, no arousal. We have high arousal, which is a negative, which is that panicky kind of situation. Then we have moderate arousal. And moderate doesn't mean you're just halfway excited. In this particular schema theory, what moderate means is, wow, you do like the other person, you are becoming attractive to the other person, and you welcome that response. So your response in this situation is favorable. You're not going to compensate. Compensate means do the opposite. You're not going to compensate by trying to move further away from that person, but instead you reciprocate. Reciprocate means you return the intimacy. So in other words, that person tries to kiss you. Person A tries to kiss you. Person B responds by kissing back. Or person A tries to hug you. Person B responds by welcoming and embracing that hug. Person A tries to hold your hand. Person B lets them hold that hand, or maybe holds it even tighter. Okay, does that make sense? So there's 3 types of reactions to that. And that's all, honestly, all I'm going to say about that theory. There's so much more, but this particular theory really can only be applied to romantic. Excuse me, I'm